All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Experience Podcast. I'm with Derek from White and Gold Nation. Will you to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, like you said, this is Derek from White and Gold Nation. I'm a Georgia Tech alumnus and have been a Georgia Tech football fan for 35 years now. Had season tickets for about 20, and just in the last 6 months, decided I would get online and start talking about Georgia Tech football for the most part, and every now and then a little bit of other Georgia Tech topics on there. But it's 99% football. So thanks for having me today.
Yeah. And what really prompted you? So how long have you been? You've been doing this for 5 months, you said?
I started it after the Clemson game last fall, and
Okay.
if you remember, I think we were 1-3 after that game, and things looked like they were really headed in a pretty negative direction, and I was just kind of bummed out one night, and I said, I've seen a lot of people get on YouTube with a lot of these. And yelling and making a fool out of myself, but I said I'm just going to turn on the camera one night and started recording and just kind of gave my thoughts on where we were as a program and where we might be headed. And at that point, things really didn't look like it was going to be a very good season. And I said, well, let me put it up on my YouTube channel, and I don't know if I'll ever do this again. And the next thing I know, I was doing it every week, and now I've decided to start a podcast, and I've picked up a lot more interaction with fellow Georgia Tech fans on Twitter since then. I've been using that Twitter account for several years, and now I'm actually getting a lot more interaction with fellow fans. So it's been an interesting experience in the last 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, and you're able to produce and edit all your stuff by yourself, I assume, right? You don't have any help?
Nope, it's just all myself. I've always kind of had a fledgling interest in audio and video, and mainly home theater going back several decades, and that's kind of turned into, with all the modern tools of let me see what I can produce and edit myself. And I'm not great at it yet, but I think I'm getting better. I think practice is definitely making me produce some better product than I was, say, 6 months ago or even before that when I was doing stuff for other channels.
No, they look pretty good. And
Thank you.
And you transitioned, well, not transitioned, but you added a podcast element. Why did you think that was the next step forward for you specifically?
Honestly, I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, I've been listening to podcasts for 20 years. I remember, it was even before I got my first iPod. So I've always been a podcast fan, but I was just doing the YouTube videos, and somebody, a fellow Tech fan who also has a channel and a podcast, and I feel really bad. I cannot remember his name off the top, or his channel off the top of my head. But if he hears this, he knows who he is, and I give him all the credit for putting the idea in my head. He said, maybe you want to turn this into a podcast. And I got to thinking. I said, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing on YouTube, it doesn't have to have the video component, because a lot of it's me talking with a little, a few graphics or something. But yeah, I was like, I think I could easily make this a podcast, and said I'd try it, and turned out I think I actually almost like doing the podcast better than the YouTube channel. But I'm going to keep doing both of them.
Mm-hmm. And each have their advantages, obviously.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well, we can go in. So you mentioned after the Clemson game, we're 1-3, right, for Tech football, and you're nervous about the team, right? And it's very fair to, because in the past few seasons you've had a lot of it's been up and down, let's say.
Right.
We had I think we had the longest bowl streak, the active bowl streak at the time. Maybe 4 years ago or so.
Right.
And then it's hard to tell. So what do you think about Paul Johnson's retirement then, and how we've kind of led into this new wave for Georgia Tech football?
Yeah, it really took me by surprise. I mean, at the point when I started talking online after that Clemson game, I've always been a big Paul Johnson fan, and I know that that's not necessarily true with all of our fans, but I've always really liked him, really liked the offense, liked his personality. And at that point, after that Clemson game, I was starting to have my doubts as to whether we should not, whether or not we should part ways with him at the end of that season, given what I expected this season to turn out as. And, when it came to the end of the season, I said, okay, this has actually been a lot better than I thought. I mean, I was very pleased with how they turned it around, and I give the team a lot of credit. They could have folded and mailed it in after that early bad start, but they They really dug down and they turned it into a decent season. And I was actually pretty excited about next year. And then I get a call from a friend of mine, and he says, "Hey, Paul Johnson's retiring." I'm like, "Do what?" Yep, pretty much that was what's happening. So, at the time, I really hated to see it, but I was excited because I can acknowledge what some of the other fans have said, that maybe that whole approach to an offensive scheme was getting a little dated. Certainly, I know it has worn its welcome out with some of our fans. So I was cautiously optimistic, even though I hated to see him go. And I do think I'm going to miss him next fall. I think I'm going to miss the offense, but I'm really excited about what we have, working in the offseason and what things are starting to look like.
And he really demanded the respect of the players too. A lot of them loved him, even because a lot of the players, a lot of fans don't realize this. A lot of these players at our school didn't play in the sort of same scheme as in high school, and so they have to learn a whole new thing now. And it was so hopefully they'll be able to adapt to the new system just as easily.
I really liked what he said when they talked to him about that after he announced his retirement. And, he kept saying, "Hey guys, these are football players." Yeah. Like you just said, they didn't all play in that system. They'll adjust because they play football, and that's what they do. They don't just play the triple option. So I thought that was a great insight that he offered to anybody who might be concerned about that.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about Jeff Collins then, as far as the new head coach then?
Honestly, I didn't know much about him when they announced his name. Yeah. I did see that some of our fans had said, "Hey, this would be a good option for us," but I honestly did not remember him from his earlier stints at Tech.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time, but then again, hey, I'm old enough to remember those seasons. So, but yeah, I didn't know who he was. I have not followed Temple football. Got to admit, I haven't always been up on some of the coordinators outside of the ACC and some of the other programs that get a lot of press. So I didn't know much about him, but I have been incredibly excited over these last few months watching what he's doing in just the off season. And it's, I don't know, maybe other coaches are doing this kind of thing and they're just not putting it out there on social media, but it just seems like we're doing something that is so radically different, not just for us, but from what most other teams are doing. I can't help but be excited and optimistic at what he wants to do and how he envisions our future. I think if you're to be successful to whatever you're going to do, you have to envision yourself doing that. And he absolutely has that vision. And to me, that is the absolute first step you have to have if you're going to do big things in whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I'm on campus every day, and so I see him. He's walking around, he's shaking hands, he's really active in the community as well. And not to push Paul Johnson aside, but he wasn't as active in that role, and that's how he did it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just you can see the different culture and the way that a head coach has his own personality, so to speak.
I think I might be a little nervous approaching Paul Johnson, but I would have no problem walking right maybe up to Jeff Collins. I think it'd be a great experience to meet him like that.
It's certainly will be an interesting new step forward for us.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I actually, one of the things that I've I didn't know much about him either, but it's almost like he knows everyone too. He brings in coaches from all sorts of places. He's been in several different spots, so it's almost not as important about what he knows, but who he knows.
I've really liked seeing him reach out to former players, not just hiring several for his staff, but the number of former players that you see, videos and pictures on social media, and that's just the ones we see. I mean, got to figure that he's reaching out even further beyond that. I think that's really exciting to bring those former players back into the fold and get them excited because they're going to be our best ambassadors to the young men that want to come in and play for Georgia Tech. So I think that's a fantastic move.
And it also helps in the recruiting as well because they can say, "Hey, this is the environment that I was in, and look at how great it is and how much better it will be with you on the team."
Absolutely.
Right? And we can get into recruiting as well. We got a big running back commit, and we have a few transfers. What do you think about those?
Yeah, I was really excited. I'll be honest, I went about 12 years and I didn't pay much attention to recruiting because Paul Johnson's approach to recruiting was very different. And, there wasn't a lot of drama when it came to recruiting. So this year I actually found myself paying attention. It's like, are we going to get this guy or maybe what are our odds with this other guy? And I was checking in on that day. And, when we got that running back and I saw that come across, I think it was on Twitter, I was like, all right, yes, we got our 4-star running back. And I haven't had a reaction like that to recruiting in a while. So I'm not one of these guys that just spends a lot of time looking over recruiting, but I very well will be going forward because it's such a different world. And, the last time I was really following recruiting, probably when Chan was here, social media wasn't a big deal. There wasn't a good way to track it. Yeah, I guess you could subscribe to the various, websites, but there really wasn't a way to pay close attention to it without a lot of effort. Now it's really simple to follow it if you have the time.
You could just Google Georgia Tech and it comes up. Yeah.
There you go. But it's fun to watch these guys interact with each other on social media too. That's it's a very different style than my style of social media, but that's probably an age thing. So.
And Georgia Tech is a hub for talent as well, so we should be able to have plenty of guys come in and use you're right near where you grew up, so it should be a familiar scene for you.
I think that is definitely a pull, and there's going to be some of those guys that don't want to go to school in the big city, but I think a lot of them will, and if we leverage that advantage along with the other advantages that we have with somebody who's so excited and enjoys the recruiting and doesn't just see that as something it's just part of the job I have to do, I think we can figure out how to sell ourselves. And it seems like Jeff Collins has that idea more than any other coach that I can remember.
Okay, let's talk about the position that everyone's wondering about, right? Quarterback for next season in a new offensive system. What do you think? How do you think they're going to move going forward?
I honestly have wondered about this. That one is somewhat of my biggest concern. Obviously our quarterbacks in recent years have been more suited to Paul Johnson's system.
The dual threat would be probably a nicer way to say it. Yeah.
Yes. It's not that it's not like that we were the Oklahoma or the Nebraska of old that might throw. Well, okay, we did throw the ball a couple of times a game, but we were more capable than those type of schools, back in the 70s who were running wishbones and things like that. We could throw it. But let's face it, it wasn't our primary option. It wasn't our forte at times. So I honestly, that's probably my biggest concern. And, I was really excited about Tobias Oliver as when he would come in the various games that he did last fall.
And the fans really liked him too. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, okay, he's going to, before the retirement, I was like, this is our guy next year. Maybe he's the next Justin Thomas. I honestly thought he should have been starting by the end of the year. Nothing against
Taquan Marshall.
I'm just having a brain fade right now. Nothing against him because I thought Taquan was just seemed like a great guy. But I was really excited about Tobias. And now, I don't know. I looked at a little bit of Tobias's background from high school, and it does look like he can definitely throw. He had some good passing numbers from what I could tell when I looked at that. But I don't know.
From what I read, I don't think he's going to be quarterback next year.
It
looks like wide receiver is probably because he's not. Yeah, we have some other guys, and I'll get to that in a minute. But with Tobias Oliver, he's so athletic and he's quick and he's so strong that I think they want to keep him on the field, but he's probably better suited as more of a wide receiver.
Yeah, and he definitely would show that in his running because he was one of the more powerful running quarterbacks I thought we'd had since maybe even Nesbitt. I mean, there were times he made me think of Nesbitt a little bit, not quite as big, but definitely a little more physical than some of the quarterbacks we'd had recently. So I could definitely see that as probably a better fit for him.
And we got a couple new guys as well, but I think the name you're going to want to keep an eye out on is Lucas Johnson.
That's what I kind of was thinking from what I've been hearing.
Yeah, who apparently was a pro-style quarterback out of high school. So he is capable, but the biggest question with him is obviously the injury. He was out last season.
Right.
And he's always, I think he's had a bit of a problem with injuries in the past. And if something happens and he goes, let's say he's the starter next year and then something happens and he goes down, we really don't have anyone else capable or as capable as he is to run the offense.
Yeah,
That's the
and that
concerning part.
was and that was the thing. I remember hearing his name a fair amount last fall or going into last fall, and then with the injury, I was thinking, what happens if Daquan goes down? We're going to be in a world of hurt. And frankly, when he did get hurt in that USF game, I thought, okay, well, Tobias Oliver's done great running left, running right, but you can't do that forever. And well, he kind of did because nobody ever really figured out how to stop him. But you can't do that. You can't do that in the new system. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's going to be, to me, that's going to be the key between a shot at a bowl and just having to get through a really rough fall. If we can get somebody in there that can at least do an adequate job at quarterback, my goal is if we can just get in a bowl, I would be happy.
6-6 seems very capable. Just looking at the schedule, and I know you did a schedule breakdown on your podcast, but I think 6-6 is very capable. Yeah, we could easily do that.
Yeah, I think that would be the happiest I would have ever been with a 6-6 record if that happens. Because for years we've talked about this. What if Paul Johnson goes? Where's it going to leave us? What kind of transition are we going to have? It's going to be rough for 2 or 3 years. And now that I look at, I don't know that it's going to take 2 or 3 years. I don't even know that it's going to be that rough for this fall if the things fall right.
Well, it may be a couple seasons of 7-5, 6-6. I don't expect in 2 years to be challenging Clemson for ACC, but it will take a couple years of transition. But I don't think it'll take. Yeah, like some people think we're doomed for the next 5 years or so, and I think that's overthinking it a little bit too much.
I think if we had gotten somebody who was not, does not have, if we had gotten somebody who could not recruit the way it appears Jeff Collins can, I would be a lot more concerned. But I am very confident from what I've seen so far, he's going to fill those gaps over the next, couple of years of recruiting cycles. And within 3 years, like you say, I think we're going to be, especially in the Coastal, because let's be honest, there is no Clemson in the Coastal.
It's 1 year it's one team, the next year it's the next. It's really hard. I mean, Miami should be good, but they have a lot of problems by themselves. So
I was talking to a Miami grad at work about a week or so ago, and we were having just this conversation about how things just took an absolute nosedive for them last year. And you're right. I thought they were on the verge of becoming the Clemson of the Coastal.
Yeah. And right when they almost made the playoffs a couple of years ago.
And then it was just absolute the wheels came off for them last fall, which doesn't bother me. I'm certainly not a Miami fan. They're probably one of my least favorite teams out there, but still, I was very surprised at just how sharp of a turn it took in the opposite direction for them last fall. So I think the Coastal is there for us to step up and grab it, or somebody to step up and grab it. Why not us?
And I'm not a really big believer in Virginia or North Carolina or
no.
I mean, Virginia Tech again is kind of similar in the Miami territory, whereas they should be good, but they haven't really, they haven't really done much in the past couple of years. And so if I'm a Virginia Tech fan, I'm definitely worried.
They seem to be, they look like they had some promise right after they hired Fuente, and then it's been a downhill slide for them ever since.
Yeah, if they go like 6-6 next year, I think he's gone.
I agree. I think his seat's got to be pretty warm at this point, and I don't think they're going to want to let somebody drag them down from what Frank Beamer built. And even Frank Beamer had come down off of his highs, but still, they were a very viable program when he retired.
Well, so they have a lot of history at that program overall too. It's not even just
Yeah, I mean they've definitely got a lot of potential, and like I said when Clemson at one point, I said Clemson was a sleeping giant. I didn't think it would be Dabo, but sure enough, he's absolutely awakened that giant.
And they have a lot of stuff going for them.
Yes, they do.
And the Georgia Tech also, just in our scheduling, it's very tough schedule. We have to play Georgia and Clemson each year.
Yep.
Which not every ACC team could say that. Those are two playoff contenders at this point every year, so it can be difficult.
I don't know that anybody has to play two legitimate playoff teams.
Two top five, top 5 teams every year. I don't.
That's a tall order.
Maybe Florida State, who plays Clemson and Florida, but even so, that's not.
Yeah, I think Florida will get back to that level. So yes, I think that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, but still, it's just in the nature of our schedule with our permanent rivals, as they call it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but I don't know that any of us would really want to give up either of those rivals, even though it's going to be a tough hill to climb every single year.
mhm. And so the UGA rivalry has not gone in our favor the last few years. Do you think that'll turn around now that you think we'll be able to recruit at Georgia's level?
I don't know that we'll be able to recruit at Georgia's level, just because Georgia seems to be at such a high level right now that while I definitely think Jeff Collins will get us well above where we've been in the past, and I do think he is going to be a capable recruiter. I I know a lot of our fans don't want to hear this, and I don't like saying it because I hate giving credit to Georgia, but I just think that they are one of those factory type programs that have so many things going for them that while we do too, and we definitely have a lot to sell, we're always going to be challenged because of a limited curriculum.
Oh, the academics play a huge
the,
factor in our
the
curriculum.
academics, and a lot of Georgia fans want to accuse us. Oh, you use that as an excuse. It's not an excuse. It's a simple reality that even if we could get, first off, the pool that we can recruit from is smaller because these guys have to, once they're in school, they have to pass their classes. They have to remain eligible. That's a lot harder at Georgia Tech, as anybody who's ever gone to school there knows, athlete or not non-athlete. It's just a simple reality of it. And we would have to get every single great player who is academically qualified to go to Georgia Tech to recruit at Georgia's level, and that's just not statistically likely. There's
Yeah.
there's too many programs that are still going after those great players that are also great students.
Even within
Georgia's
our
going after
division.
them too.
Yeah. So,
Exactly. So I think we're going to recruit a lot better. I don't know that we'll at least in the foreseeable future. I don't know if we'll be at the Georgia level, but I don't think that's a knock because I think we're going to far surpass what a lot of us thought we could have done if you'd asked us that question 5 years ago.
and that's part of the reason why Georgia Tech went with Paul Johnson because they wanted to recruit
Right.
different types of players. We couldn't compete. And
Right.
so it'll be kind of hopefully it won't be another situation like that where we realize we can't compete and we have to switch it up completely and completely take it down.
That's what I'm very anxious to see with Jeff Collins this fall once we get on the field. Because the one thing I always had confidence in Coach Johnson was that he would get the most out of his players, that he would use his system to put us in a chance to have a chance to win most games. Granted, it was a lot of times a tall order against the Clemsons and the Georgias, but even those we've won our fair share of those games in recent years. But how will Jeff Collins do? Will he coach at the level of his talent, or will he coach them up like we have had coaches do in the past? That's going to be an interesting thing to see. Is he going to be able to get more than maybe some people thought we might be able to get out of our players, like we saw with Paul Johnson? I don't know. That to me is an open question. We'll see how that goes. And I don't think this fall will be the ultimate answer to that. I think we'll know that the answer to that question after 2, maybe 3 years.
No, yeah, we got to let him get a lot of
Right.
his players. We still have a lot of Paul Johnson's players, so
Right.
we don't know what type of players Jeff Collins goes after. I mean, he said I think
Right.
he wants bigger guys, more athletic guys too.
Yeah,
I
think that makes sense.
Because when you look at our offensive line, we've been recruiting smaller but quicker guys to go with our option system
Right.
for obvious reasons. And so he's kind of saying, well, those guys are good, but we need bigger guys to compete with the Clemsons and the Georgias who have basically NFL players on their teams.
Right. I mean, we've always had, and this is not a knock on our offensive line because we've definitely had some guys that can play. You've got some guys that have gone to the NFL. Look at Shaq Mason.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. We've leaned towards those undersized offensive linemen, and frankly, a lot of times you look at our guys and then look at the guys that are playing for Georgia and Miami and Clemson, and it's like, oh my gosh, how do we compete with these guys? But then we did. We found a way to do it. But you're right. In the new system, in a more traditional system, we're certainly going to want size that we've not necessarily been going after in recent years.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to get it because, again, we're competing with all those players. But
everybody wants the same guys.
Yeah. And then what do you think about our wide receivers? I don't know how much you pay attention to the wide receivers, but do you think they'll be capable? Because they haven't had the same chances, obviously. And I think there was a quote from Brad Stewart, maybe it was his pastor, who was like, where the wide receivers coach told them, yeah, you don't get many chances, so you have to take advantage of every single one of them. And so at this point now, hopefully they'll have more opportunities to showcase what they could do.
I've always been impressed with the wide receivers that we've had, because when Paul Johnson came in, the knock was, okay, no wide receivers going to want to play in the system. Demaryius Thomas was there when he got there.
Yeah, he was already there, and he was frustrated apparently a lot,
He
for
was
obvious
there,
reasons.
but we've still managed to have good wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm forgetting some names here, but just all through the years, we always had in most seasons, we had at least one go-to wide receiver that we could count on that could make plays happen. And I don't have a lot of concern about that. I don't know that the numbers are there, although I think a lot of these A-backs will convert and play wide receiver, because that was something.
And Tobias Oliver, like I mentioned.
Exactly. And
I think Nathan Cottrell might.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it Nathaniel? No, yeah, what up?
Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan Cottrell might be a good receiver as well.
Well, that was one of the things Paul Johnson says. When they would recruit for A-backs, a lot of those guys were receivers in high school. So you've got guys that have played receiver, and I don't know which ones have and which ones haven't, but maybe they're not all that 6'5" type of frame that we had with Calvin Johnson, but those guys are a guy like Calvin Johnson is a one-generation type of player anyway. So I think we've got guys that can play receiver, and to me, the success of our offense is going to come down, as we were talking about, the quarterback and the offensive line, as needing to be able to protect that quarterback in a system where the quarterback's not just going to take off and run on every play. That's going to be the key. If the offensive line can protect a quarterback that can stand back there and he can throw it, I think we'll have guys that can catch it. I'm not concerned about that. Not to the degree that I am about the other two positions.
Yeah. And we haven't really touched on it yet, but let's get into the defense, because that's something that's gone up and down, and a lot of people have said that that's really what's been the success of the team during the Paul Johnson era. Now, his offense, for the most part, is ranked similarly on a year-to-year basis,
right?
Which maybe some people don't realize. But in terms of efficiencies and some of those more harder analytical stats, they really is the same offense every year. And it's the defense that carries the team to either 10-win season or a 3-win season in 1 year. So do you think the transition will be okay? This is now the third new defensive coordinator the past 3 years. So what do you think about that?
Like you said, where we've made things happen has not. Yes, defense has been, in good years has been better, but we have not had one of those Alabama style, lockdown, shut everybody down type of defenses. So I don't think anything that Jeff Collins is going to do is going to make that worse. Now, that's one area where I'm sure there might have been some impact on recruiting defensive players, thinking, okay, well, we're going to be on the field this much time, and we want to have guys that defend this way because we want to, this is how our defensive strategy is. I'm sure there was some consideration.
Well, it's also in practice. You're practicing against a different type of offense too. So they see different things, and maybe they're thinking, the NFL teams won't look at me as much.
And there's that consideration as well. But, in general, I think the players that we would have recruited under Paul Johnson are probably going to be similar to the type of players that we recruit under Jeff Collins. So I don't see the drastic. I'm sure there will be tweaks, but I don't think there's a drastic difference in who we're recruiting. Now, I think he has coached on the defensive side in the SEC where obviously they're known for strong defenses. I don't think there's anything that he's going to do, either him or his coordinator, that is going to harm us. I don't see a transition period. Now, does that mean we're going to become, Alabama overnight? No, I don't think so. But I do think he will improve it. And I thought we took a step forward last year on defense. And I don't know.
It was a mixed bag. We had a lot more. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't that we were all of a sudden so much greater, but I thought that we did a better job at stopping at times when we needed to. There were certain games that was better than others, but as much as I hate to knock Ted Roof, and I don't really like doing that because he went to my high school, so I've always been a big fan of his going back to when he was, he was a player and whatnot. But I did think that the way we approached defense last year worked a little better.
we got a lot more turnovers. That was a
Yeah,
big thing.
that was a
changed
big
us.
thing. I thought there was a little bit better hitting last fall. I mean, I remember there was some, it seems like every game we had some big hits that we didn't always have. We got more turnovers, like you said, which was a huge deal and a big help to us. So I guess I haven't really been thinking that much on the defense side because obviously the big transition is more on offense. And I've just kind of been of the mindset that, well, the defense will be no better or no worse, maybe a little better, at least in the first year. To me, our success is going to be what we do on offense. I don't foresee anything that's going to go so wrong on defense that it would be the reason why, it could be the difference between a 6-6, 7-5, and a 2-10 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Wesley Wells has not missed a kick for Georgia Tech. Is he the next Harrison Butker?
There's something to be said for consistency. I don't know. I want to say I don't know that he's got the same leg, but it seemed like he did have a pretty long kick late in the season. I can't remember which game that was, but there's something to be said for a guy that can go out there and just put the ball through the uprights when he needs to. Maybe you got to get him a little closer if he's not a Harrison Butker, but I'll take a guy that is accurate, consistent, but maybe lacks 5 to 6 to 7 yards over a guy that can maybe kick it in occasionally from the 50, or not necessarily the 50, but from 50 yards out. So I think the consistency is what's going to make him a great player. I don't know if he's going to be a Harrison Butker. Harrison's done really good in the NFL. So,
yeah, Wells's long was against Virginia. It was 48 yards.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking it was late in the season, and I remembered it was a lot longer than I thought it was when he hit it because I remember thinking, this might be a little out of his range, and he nailed it. But
48, which is a good. That's
a good kick.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I was like 40. I had the same exact thinking that you were thinking. I was like, they should have punted here, or they should have gone for it, or whatever. I don't remember this exact circumstance, but I was. Yeah, at that moment I was like, I don't know if he could do this but he
and he did. Just he went out there and knocked it. I just remember I don't remember the circumstance in the game because I remember that day I was not able because of some things that were going on. I was not able to watch it live, which was like the first time in I don't know how long that I've not watched one of our games live. So I'm watching it later that night on recording and thinking, okay. Did he hit this? Did we win this game? I just remember it was a big situation. And when he hit it, I kind of went nuts. And my wife and her mom were looking at me like, what's wrong with you? And
yeah, that was a big moment because that was one of our most pivotal games. In terms of bowl eligibility and that sort of well, not bowl eligibility, but
because I was like, we're probably not going to beat Georgia to get into a bowl game. So we
I think time
we'd already clinched it.
Yeah, we already had 6 wins, but 7 wins would have gotten us a better bowl. And we'll talk about the bowl game in a minute.
I'm still irritated about that.
Yeah,
one,
but
that's a different.
I have something. Maybe we can incite each other on that. But the kicking had. I don't know. Did you go to the Tennessee game at Mercedes-Benz?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that
definitely.
game. If you remember the kicking at that game, I was there too, but. That was just it was almost embarrassing at one point. I was like I felt bad for the guy. I forgot his name.
There was a couple of guys that year, and I honestly I don't remember their names either.
Well, there's Brenton King, who isn't really who doesn't really kick anymore, and I forgot the other guy, but he still does our kickoffs. He still does our kickoffs.
Yeah, and I don't remember which. Yeah, I don't remember which one. One of them went to Mill Creek.
Sean Davis. Yeah,
okay,
Sean Davis.
Yeah, I think Sean Davis was the one that went to Mill Creek because I remember seeing that. I was like, oh, okay, because I grew up in Gwinnett, so I'm always kind of attuned to these kids that came out of Gwinnett schools. Mm-hmm. And I remember I seen some video of him playing for Mill Creek in high school. But yeah, we that fall was just a terribly inconsistent year for kicking. We went from, previous years. I don't remember. Was that the year after Harrison Butker left?
That was the year right after. Yeah, that was the
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went from he's money. He's going to hit the kick. Every time he's out there to, oh my, I don't even know if we're going to hit an extra point this.
I mean, arguably the greatest kicker at Georgia Tech ever. Yeah, he's the leading scorer.
I can't think of a better one. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the NFL now, making a lot of money. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've had some pretty good kickers over the years, but I cannot think of one that was on par with Harrison. He definitely is
Um,
going to go down as one of the best, if not
and you
the
almost
best.
feel bad for the guys at the Tennessee game. There's a couple of rookies, Sean Davis and Bretton King. It's their first college game ever, and they're doing it at Mercedes-Benz Stadium against
Yeah,
an out-of-conference opponent. It's a big stage, and you could tell they were nervous. It's not that they were that bad, because some of those kicks were not even close.
yeah. I mean, it was rough. That was sort of always that night was. I didn't realize that how inconsistent we were going to be as a team, that whole season.
Mhm.
But I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a rough year when it comes to kicks. We're going to have to get really close, or we're going to be going for it even more than we normally do.
And it took we got down to our third kicker, our walk-on kicker, not even a scholarship kicker too, which is the most interesting thing. Huh.
That was just a weird season. I mean, at times it looked like, oh, we're going to be really strong, and then it was just head scratching losses, and in a way, it was more frustrating than the 3-9 season when Justin Thomas was a junior, because at least
we knew
that was sort of understandable. But every week in 2016, it was like, what's going to happen this week? Even after or was that 2017? I guess that was 2017.
2017, yeah.
Yeah, 2017. 2016 was when we started in Ireland. That was when we went to the Gators. So, okay, gotcha. Or whatever they call that bowl game now.
It's now the Taxslayer Gator Bowl.
That's right, the Taxslayer Bowl. Yeah.
It's Taxslayer Gator. They put the Gator back on.
Oh, they put the Gator back.
Yeah, it's Taxslayer Gator Bowl.
Okay.
But at the time, it was Taxslayer Bowl. It's all it's all contracts and stuff.
Yeah, I get it. I get the sponsorship. I just wish they'd keep at least their traditional name. At least they put Peach Bowl back in the Chick-fil-A.
They put Gator back.
That's good.
But it's not as weird as the Quick Lane Bowl.
Which
no one really knows what Quick Lane is.
I had to look it up. Yeah, it's
Ford. It's Ford's motor parts, basically,
yep.
right? Which even Ford doesn't like the bowl that much that they won't even put their name on it. They put their motor parts name on
it. Maybe they're like, hey, we sponsor the stadium. Somebody needs to step up and help this. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. And so go. I mean, you've detailed your thoughts on the bowl game a lot on your channel, but you can give me like a quick rundown, basically, of what you think, and I have some information maybe that'll help, I guess.
Yeah, I thought. I guess my thinking was coming out. We were 7-5.
Mm-hmm.
We've outplayed several of the teams that we're going to be competing against it for a bowl slot, and then they went and gave Virginia. And to be fair, Virginia won that game. I did not expect it when they got the belt bowl. But I thought, hey, these bowls are going to realize we're going to show up in force. This is Paul Johnson's last game. We've had a decent season. We've beaten most of the teams that are going to be competing for us for those slots. It's a no-brainer to give us something where we can show up and send Paul Johnson out, with a big road crowd. And then on selection day and the days leading up to it, you just kept hearing things. Nope, they're not going to take us. They're going to take so-and-so. They're going to take this other team. Well, maybe we can go to Birmingham. I was like, well, I don't really want to go to that game, but at least it's easy to get to. And everything that was a good option for us to be able to go in large numbers to send off Paul Johnson just kept falling by the wayside. And then it was like, how did we wind up falling all the way to Detroit, where very few of us are going to go?
I have some theories, and none of this is super confirmed, but I've heard some things. I guess is what I should say. But basically, it was a couple things. The first one was, historically, we don't turn out as well as other teams, as other schools. We're not a big money TV school like a Miami, Virginia Tech.
I can appreciate that.
And it wasn't. We just don't sell as many tickets. Apparently, even in the Orange Bowl, we didn't sell. We actually did not sell as many tickets as our opponent, Mississippi State. And then at the Taxslayer Gator Bowl as well. I don't know did you go to that game?
I have not been to a bowl after going to 112 straight games through 2016. I have actually not gone to a bowl game since I don't even remember the last one I went to.
I went to the Gator Bowl, and it was majority Kentucky fans at that game. And so one of the biggest problems is we just don't sell as many tickets as other schools, right. And so there wasn't as large an incentive. And unfortunately, it is more about money than anything else.
It is.
We don't we don't like that, but that's just the truth of it.
I mean, I get it. They want to sell tickets. They need to get somebody in the games that will cause people to watch. Though, to be honest, as much as I will watch pretty much any game during the regular season, I have to admit I don't watch a lot of these bowl games either. They're not very compelling matchups a lot of times. So I get it. They want to at least try to get somebody that will at least get as big an audience as they can. But I guess I was just very frustrated because I really wanted to be there for Paul Johnson's last game, and when I saw that it was Detroit, I just knew that was going to be a tough sell to. I said, well, let me look at flights just to see, and I was like, no, I can't. There was back when I was going to every single game, it wouldn't have mattered. I'd have been up there, big deal. But now I was just like, I just can't justify going, so I'm gonna have to watch it on TV.
And apparently it is not even the athletic. It's not the ACC director or commissioner. It's not our athletic director, because our athletic director apparently was going to these bowl games and trying to not what's the right word? Really trying to sell the school and trying to to bid and encourage them to choose us. But they basically the bowls came to us and they said, "Hey, can you sell these guaranteed tickets?" And Swansbury said, "I don't think we could sell those." And that was unfortunately what happened. Yeah, that was one of the rumors that I heard was. He didn't agree. Yeah, the Bulls were basically making him sell a certain amount of tickets, and he didn't think Georgia Tech would. So that was part of why we fell out of favor.
Budget-wise, we probably don't. Given what I've heard about that with regards to moving these games to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, apparently we're in a bigger budget hole than I realized. So we're probably not in a position to guarantee those if we can't sell them to the fans.
Well, because we lost, we didn't do that great. Again, we didn't do that great on the Gator Bowl or the Orange Bowl, the past couple bowls, and so. You can't really blame the Bulls on that. And the other thing was it was a game of musical chairs and we kind of lost essentially.
Yeah.
Was with the Bulls.
That's pretty much what happened. And honestly, in hindsight being 2020, you look at how we did in that game, and some of that could have been, did we really want to be there? But you look at how we performed in that game, and it probably proved everyone right that said, hey, that's where we're going to put them. Because that was just not a fun game to watch.
Oh, yeah, and I was at the game, and it was not a fun game to be at, too.
Yeah, there was a little part of me that was like, I'm kind of glad I didn't go now. Cold weather,
No, it wasn't as cold as it was cold, but it wasn't, It's an indoor stadium too.
It is, and I would like to see Detroit. It's one of the biggest cities in the U.S. I've not yet gone to, and I would like to go, but I'd prefer to go somewhere between like April and September. So,
yeah, I think it was I don't remember. It was like 40 degrees, which isn't not awful considering it's Detroit. So
yeah. That's it is what it is. It didn't work out as we had hoped. It still irritates me, but I'm not quite as angry as I was when I shot that video. That was the one time that I probably did come across as like some of these other YouTubers yelling at the camera.
Well, sometimes that's what gets people to watch.
Yeah. Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe I do need to do that and start staging knocking over TVs and whatnot that I see some of these other guys doing.
No, you don't have to go that far. You stay within the realms of your personality.
Yeah. I don't know that'd be very believable for me if I tried to pull that. So.
Well, that's pretty much all I have for you. Anything else you want to talk about? Otherwise, we can wrap it up soon.
Well, no. I think it's been a great discussion. Just like I said, I'm really excited about where we're headed, and frankly, when Paul Johnson announced his retirement, I didn't know yet who we were going to hire. I didn't know that I would be excited. Looking into next fall, given the transition and everything. So, very, very interested to see how spring practice. It's going to be one of the most interesting spring practices to watch in probably about 12 years. So,
and I'll probably be at the spring game too, and that'll be interesting to go.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely try to make it for that. I'm as regular as I've been going to games. I don't always make it to spring games, but I really am going to make a point to try to get to this one, just because I want to see how different it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And
to be fair, they may not show much at this game just because of it's so soon and everything.
But it's going to be just weird seeing us not running the triple option. That's just going to be a very strange thing to see. But I think Jeff Collins will make it an interesting night, no matter what they show, because I just think he's got that flair. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on. I've enjoyed the discussion.
Where can people find your content? Go ahead.
Yeah, you can find the podcast is now on pretty much all major outlets as far as directories. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you get podcasts, you can get the actual podcast. And the YouTube channel is at White and Gold Nation. And you can find me on Twitter at GT_football. And I've been pretty active on that in the last 6 months since I've really been ramping this up. And I look forward to interacting with a lot more fans like I have already been doing. It's going to be fun this fall when we get into a full season. And, I've kind of been doing this for a year. So looking forward to where this could go and having fun with it.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
All right. Appreciate it.